All right, guys, it is Tuesday night. It is 7 o'clock. And as you all know, for the last 5 years, it is time for conversations with Commodores. And we have a treat tonight. He has recently been re-nicknamed as Dub, but we all know him as Royce Risser. Royce, thank you for showing up tonight. I'm so glad to reconnect after all these years, my friend.
Long time, man. I'm fired up.
Well, if you guys can see from the background in Royce's photos, see a bunch of guitars, and I think I see some whiskey bottles and some great stories I know are going to come out of our conversation tonight. But Royce, before we jump into all things Vanderbilt, share a little bit about what's going on in your world these days, and tell us about your beautiful family and stuff like that.
Man. Real briefly, when I left my internship for my HOD they call it capstone now. It was just our internship for our major, but um I did it at MCA Records and fell into it by chance with a person that I was in a theater course with, and I ended up interning there, and they hired me right out of um, undergrad to answer phones in the promotion department. And I was going to go to grad school, and I did go to grad school there as well. But while I was there, I kind of fell in love with the music business, and um, I ended up being at that company at MCA, which was under the Universal Music Group umbrella for 32 years. Um, Sort of it changed multiple times. We merged with Mercury Records, so it was MCA for about 10 years. It was an unbelievable era there. We had George Strait and Reba McEntire and Vince Gill, and those three in particular stayed with us the entire time, stayed with me the entire time I was there. With a short stint, Reba left for a little bit, came back, but um, then we merged with Mercury. Then it turned into Capital and EMI. We bought them. It's a bunch of shifts and changes of chairman going out, and it was wild. It was a great run. I was the For about 10 years, I was the only one left from the original kind of start point. When I started, all the people were gone, and I was one of the only ones there. So
So you started basically from the ground up and just stayed
absolutely
with
ground up. Yes, literally answering phones in the promotion department, and stayed in promotion and ended up running the promotion department for about 15 years and
it.
adding labels to it, and had four labels and had four promotion teams. And uh, it was a great run. I In 23 I left and joined a company called The Family, which is a management company
Mhm.
based out of San Diego and LA that is also a sports agency. So we have a sports agency and management company. And so on the other side, we have Machine Gun Kelly and Avril Lavigne. On the sports side, we've got a bunch of pro athletes, and Wyndham Clark on the golf side. Like we got a bunch of stuff happening there, but really crazy, interesting story. But I don't know if we'll have time to go into all of that. But um, so I'm there now, and I'm sort of running the new division for the company, which is the country division in the management on the management side.
I've got three different people asking for tickets to concerts. Are you the
That's my
or,
life, man.
or
I've
is there
been
someone else?
dude. Yeah, I bet it's gonna happen. And hey,
All
you
right.
is your friend who's a songwriter. You should have him send me some demos too, because I love to get that stuff.
Yeah, Royce's number is 619. Never. We got Emma Harris in the house.
Oh, look at this. Look
There
at
we
this.
go.
She's still
There
cutting
we
my hair, Bernard.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
We got Keystone Cop, Billy Smith in the
Billy
house.
Smith. I got a great story on Billy too. He let well Phil Roach and I at one point. You know Phil Roach. You know who he is, right?
Of course.
Long story short, really short. Phil was sort of my adopted brother when I came to Nashville because he played with my brother, and Phil and I would go on like double dates a lot with people. So we would set up a double dating system, and at one point we had motorcycles already that we had to use from friends, and we decided it was during Halloween, and we were going to dress up like cops and pick them up on motorcycles. Which now, you look at it now, it's like that was so stupid. But Billy got us two police helmets. I remember one of the officers was tomato because he had it literally said tomato on the back of the helmet, but Billy took care of us. It was hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Oh, we've got OJ Fleming in the house, and I don't know if you guys ever intersected. OJ came in the fall of '94, but you may have been gone.
Yeah,
Uh,
let me think. Yeah, I was gone. I was definitely gone by then.
and then we've got the golden leg, number 6, Jimmy Arnold says to tell you
Big
hello.
Jim Arnold. He played with my brother, and Jim and I have seen each other multiple times over the years. He's
Well,
awesome.
they're showing up for you tonight, Royce.
That's
Let's stay in the present. Let's talk about, or you do still live in the Nashville metro
in
area?
Nashville. Yeah. So I've been here since literally since I left California. I mean, come back to school. I went back in the summers every year, but I've been here ever since.
Well, one of the beautiful things that you could share with us is briefly your observation how Nashville has gone, during our era, a sleepy small southern town, and you don't dare go down to Lower Broad unless you want some of the bad elements of society, to what has transformed into this. I mean, Atlanta better look out because Nashville's fast gaining on it.
It's wild, and we I mean, I remember going to Second Avenue for stuff. If you went anywhere, it was down to Second. Broadway was just everything was a dive, and I mean, maybe some people went down there. I didn't, but if you went somewhere to a restaurant, it was like Mayor Bowles, and there's a few places on Second Avenue that you might go to,
Oh,
but very rarely did anybody go downtown. And our office was in the SunTrust building for quite a while,
mhm.
and I watched that whole Fifth and Broadway thing go up. But I mean, there's cranes everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this, but I think I want to say it really accelerated when people started having their bachelorette parties here.
Yeah. This, Royce, I think this would have been post tornado. If you remember when the tornado came through
Yep.
and it flooded downtown,
Yep.
maybe around 2002 or three. I'm not sure about my timing, but after that, it just seemed like it
You
just.
could see. So my office was overlooking the Ryman Auditorium. I had a balcony out of my office, and you would look out and see the
Mhm.
Ryman. You saw the water that had come up on to Second Avenue, but what they were saying was underground. The places further, almost to Bridgestone, were flooded, but you couldn't see the water on top. It was certainly underneath, and it
Mhm.
flooded everything underneath. It was wild.
Dwayne Jones was with it. Thank you, Dwayne. Dwayne said it was 1999. He's my memory, so he's got it. Um, I do want to share a personal story. When I was a freshman in 1987, we went to the old municipal auditorium because the unbelievably successful hair band of the 80s, Rat, was
Yeah.
performing down there with
By the way,
Queen.
I saw a prior episode, and someone said it's not there. It's still there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it is not
I
torn down.
didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but they were performing with Queensryche, that other phenomenal band.
yeah.
But there's about 6 of us, Fred Peterson, Wally Hubert, me, and some other non-athletes from our floors. We're in the front row, and they're filming an MTV video for their song Round and Round. And we look so out of place, all these big dudes in the front
Yes,
row. I
I
know you
remember
remember
that.
that song.
That's awesome. So, did you guys get in the video? Were you in it?
The version that I had seen in the past, you can see us just because we recognize our
Right.
bodies,
Yeah,
but I haven't seen it on YouTube to find it again. That version, they did a different version, like a more studio production version.
yeah.
But anyway, that was just one of my,
That's
goofy
cool.
undergrad memories from back in the day. Royce, how I know that your older brother you mentioned a little while ago played before you. Let's talk about your brother for just a minute. You guys coming from California, how did Vanderbilt get on the map, say for your brother?
Um, You know, it's really weird. So my oldest brother, Randy, he played at Stanford. He was 11 years older than me, so he was a receiver there with, and I heard you mention it on another podcast too that I watched, but with Elway. So he was there. So when I was a kid, I was like a young kid going to Stanford games,
Mhm.
watching my older brother play, my
Mhm.
other brother Rick. That was
Mhm.
Randy. So Rick was playing high school football, and I was the water boy. I was a water boy for about 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And Rick was 8 years older than me, so I was, you know, the way down at
You're the
the
baby of the family, or the baby
yeah,
of
I was
those
the
three.
accident. Um, but it was Rick got recruited. I think he went to JUCO for a couple of years to kind of get his grades up to par. I
Mhm.
don't know exactly why he went to JUCO, but he did. And Vanderbilt recruited him out of there. Randy had been at Stanford, and and Vanderbilt was recruiting in Southern California. I think honestly, I look back at it now, and Rick has told me, I think, but he made a phone call, and he and Chuck Scott were best friends. Um,
Mhm.
uh, I think they might have called Warhop or one of the coaches. It might have been Mantooth actually that they called and said, "Hey, you got to check out my brother." And so he came, and they started
Mhm.
recruiting then. So that was kind of how I think I got on their radar,
Mhm.
which he'll never let me live that down. But I was obviously very thankful that I got to come to
Well,
Vanderbilt.
sure. No, that's, having two older brothers who played Division I major college sports, that must have been, or they must have been, sports idols for you to watch and
Heck
emulate
yeah, that's
as
all I
a
mean,
kid.
just being a little kid, watching my brothers play, and I loved it. I loved the sport, and
Mhm.
um, couldn't get enough of it playing. Um, anyway,
What hometown did you guys grow up in?
we grew up in a place called Hacienda Heights, California, which is about 22 miles southeast of Los Angeles,
Mhm.
maybe about 45 minutes from the ocean. So we're kind of inland. I would say closer to Disneyland if you're looking
Mhm.
geographically. We were near Anaheim, just on the border of LA County and Orange County.
Now you get to, did you visit the school when your brother was playing? I mean, you were so much younger.
Never came. I literally never went. I don't know why. Because my parents came out a ton. We never visited until I never visited Nashville until my recruiting trip. And interestingly enough, Rick was somewhat, I would say he didn't love Nashville
Mhm.
um, during his time here. And I think a lot of it had to do with his situation in California. He had a girlfriend out there. And so I think he just always wanted to be back in California. And he still lives there. He lives in Newport Beach, but um, we just never went. I don't understand why. But it would have been fun because they were winning a ton of games, and that's when they
Mhm.
went to the Hall of Fame Bowl
Yeah.
his senior year.
Yeah.
So it was a great time for Vanderbilt football.
Mhm.
But became close with his buddies, guy named Bobby Sanchez, who has passed away, I believe, and Chuck Scott and Phil Roach and all those guys that were playing with him at the time.
Sure. Phil hasn't been on the show yet, but Chuck and his son Caleb, who later played also at Vanderbilt, they were both on the show.
Oh, is
Uh,
Chuck on the show?
they both were a
Okay,
couple of
I
years,
didn't see that
not
either.
live right now, but in the past they've been guests.
Okay.
But I tell you who just popped in, and I've got a message from him to you, is Coach Shepard, Coach Gary Shepard.
Yeah, that's
He
awesome.
says to tell you hello, and he says you may know his son John and sister-in-law Kathy Sewell from iHeartRadio.
Kathy
Those
Sewell.
names ring a
Oh,
bell?
yes, Kathy Sewell does ring a bell.
Hmm.
I want to say we've talked about that in the past because
Hmm.
oh, and it's another one. I just met Rick Christophel's daughter on a oh
With the
not Christophel. Sorry. It was oh man, I'm blanking right now. It was on a plane last week.
Oh wow, it'll come to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He also says that you are welcome to visit him up in Clarksville at Edwards Steakhouse that he helps to run, and he will do you right. And I've
All
been
right.
there. Dwayne and I
That's an
went a
easy
couple
drive.
springs
Let's
ago.
go. Drive through Clarksville.
Oh, great food, great food.
That's awesome.
Um, Royce, when you were growing up, were you just a football guy, or were you the sport of the season, just rotating through the calendar year?
I was
Talk a little bit
primarily,
about that.
yeah, I was primarily football until I got into high school, and then I fell in love with volleyball. And we had a men's volleyball team at our high school,
Mhm,
and I started playing uh, as a freshman, or started just playing the sport. I didn't know anything about it, but
mhm,
one of our the coach asked me if I would like to give it a shot, and I fell in love with it. So
mhm,
um, ended up playing men's volleyball while I was there.
mhm.
And actually, weirdly enough, when I was at Vanderbilt, they had a club team. And when I could in the
I had
spring,
no idea.
yeah, they had a men's club team. No one knew about it, but I would go
Yeah.
practice with them. I never got to play in any of the tournaments because of football, but
Mhm.
I did practice with them every once in a while. It was really cool.
Side note, did you know Rob Chura played on the men's hockey team, club team during his years?
I did not. It doesn't surprise me though. I mean, no one knew about hockey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
no one in Nashville. I didn't even know there was a rink in Nashville.
Yeah. Rob's been on the show, and we currently still have a hockey club team that's very active.
That's
So,
we It's another weird story. One of my friends in the music industry had his bachelor party, and he's like a hockey. Um, he played hockey in college, but he's like Joe Newendike and Mike Richter. Those hockey players are some of his best friends, and so we got the ice at Bridgestone at his bachelor party, and it was the first time like there was 20 of us. We all
mhm.
got gear from the St. Louis Blues. They all brought us gear, so we put on pads, skates, and we all tried to play hockey, and it was the most I can't even explain to you how hard that sport is. But we decided we were going to form a team in a D league, and it was called the Hitmen, and it was awful. Like Bernard, that is the hardest thing to learn hockey as an adult. It was awful. It was fun, but it was, I mean, just a beat down.
Oh man,
A
I
beat down.
can only imagine. When was the last time you played any version of volleyball?
It's been a while. It's
Mhm.
been a while. I would love to go play somewhere, but golf is the new
Is that,
golf is where I am now.
well, I was going to say, is that's what's got your attention these days is golf?
Yeah.
Well, Royce, you're coming out of Southern California. I'm sure that there were other schools that were interested or that you were interested in, but how did you not stay on the West Coast? What was it about either your brother's experience
It
or
wasn't, because
what
if
was
it
it?
was my brother, I think I would have gone somewhere else because Rick didn't have a great experience. I mean, I take that back. He had a great experience, but he just didn't like Nashville. I got recruited by Stanford,
Mhm.
and I think I saw Tim's thing too, Tim Walker. That was cool seeing him. I need to connect with him because obviously we were roommates freshman year. But
Mhm.
um, I was recruited by Stanford and the Air Force Academy. Those were the two big ones that I was looking at,
Mhm.
along with Vanderbilt. And um, I Stanford uh, didn't make the final offer to for the scholarship. So that was a disappointment because I loved Stanford as a kid.
Mhm.
Great memories there. Crazy story. John Elway, my brother Randy, he called him Opie, so I was little Opie, and it was just a great time. Trying to think, Ken Marjoram
Mhm.
was there, Darren Nelson was there. They had a great run, and then Air Force Academy was the other one that I was really looking at, and that was really appealing too, Bernard. Like it was a apps like their recruiting trip was unbelievable.
Mhm.
They put us in I think it was an F-15 at the time, F-18, I forget what it was, but they put you in the plane and they say, "Son, you could be flying this." They make you think you're going to be a pilot, and it's
Yeah.
really hard. It's really hard to walk away from something like that. But I decided on Vanderbilt. I'm really glad I did. I mean, my life would have been way different.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask you. Have you ever thought about what your life's trajectory would have looked like had you gone to Air Force
All right.
versus your choice that you
Yeah.
actually made?
And I had a teacher in high school, and I can't remember his name right now, and it's driving me crazy. But
Mhm.
he told me, he goes, Royce, he goes, with all the stuff that you do here, he said, because I
Mhm.
was involved in theater stuff in high school
Mhm.
too, and he was like, with all your interests, he said, I Vanderbilt feels like a better fit for you, and
Mhm.
um, I'm so glad he did. Like that was a very persuasive argument on his part, and it's the reason I chose Vandy for the most part.
Isn't it just interesting to think back on how certain conversations in our lives or certain individuals who are part of our lives and teachers are some of the most important ones,
Uh,
how those conversations can set your mind in a certain path that shapes what your
yeah,
next 40 years are going to look like. I'm not saying that one conversation was it.
no, it was a huge piece of it, and you look back at it, and I look even then I look back on it, I said that was the deciding factor for me.
You just hit on something, Royce, that is something that's so important that I think for me and for these conversations, it's those pivotal times of our lives that things occur that maybe at that moment may not seem as significant, but later in life you look back and you're like, that right there, that moment or that you remember maybe how you felt, maybe not the whole conversation, but it's just like, all right, that's sending me
But man,
that.
isn't everything like that, Bernard? Like, and I'm saying this, but there's so many things that happen to you when you go through something really hard
Mhm.
in your life, and you're at the time you're like, what's going on? This sucks. And then you
Mhm.
look back even a year later, sometimes 5 years later, and you go, that was huge. That
Yeah,
moment
yeah.
changed everything for me, and I'm so glad it happened.
Yeah.
Or I got I got thicker skin. It helped me to face the next piece of adversity. And
Mhm.
a lot, I mean, I go back to Vanderbilt football in general and say that was so difficult. Like that it
Mhm.
was, there's nothing easy about college football.
Yeah.
Nothing. The
Yeah.
time, the work that you put in, all of
Mhm.
that makes you who you are down the road. I'm sure
Oh,
everybody feels the
yeah.
same way. I mean, I've seen that in every video that you've done with these guys. They all look back at it and go, "That was a huge piece of who I am and why I'm
Yeah.
doing what I'm doing right now."
And let me give you a very small example. Christy Hauk, I stayed with Christy a few weeks ago,
He's a
and
good pal.
he says, "Have you had Royce on?" And I said, "No, I hadn't talked to Royce since college.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to." He says, "Here's
yeah,
his number," and
yeah,
that's how we
yeah,
reconnected.
yeah,
So it's as you probably have told your kids, as I tell my kids, it's not always what you know. A lot of times it's that networking. It's who
yeah,
you.
yep.
You never know what one conversation. We're getting deep here, guys. We're going to come back to Vanderbilt football.
We are. We're
Yeah,
getting psychological.
it's getting thick in this
Yeah,
house.
it is.
But Royce, it's so true. One of the things that I truly loved now, not necessarily back then, because as you mentioned, football was hard. It
Yep.
was not supposed to be easy. It's the brotherhood, it's the connections, it's the networking, and all the years since that I so crave and value that my experience of playing college football, had I not done that, had I chose a different path, then I wouldn't have all of
Yeah.
this. It'd be
Yeah.
it'd be a lot different life experience, frankly.
Well, it's hard too when you're at a school like Vanderbilt, and I'm sure any other college, when you
Mhm.
watch if you have friends that are just normal students, or even if you don't, and you see the normal students,
Yeah.
what they kind of get to do with their free time, uh,
Oh yeah.
it's appealing from their perspective. It's like to I got to go watch film for 2 hours and then go practice for 2 hours and then come home and I got to study. Um, it's a um, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying now.
It's a very regimented,
Yeah.
disciplined 4 or 5 years, however long you're there. And you're so right. We've got, and this is we're going to get to another part of this in a little bit, but let me pause that part and come back to you.
Okay.
You come on your recruiting visit. Obviously, Nashville and the campus makes an impact on you. Do you happen to remember anything about the visit, who your hosts were? Were there other future teammates on their visits at the same time? Do you remember any of that?
I don't think I don't, unless someone corrects me. I don't know if any of the guys. I don't remember if the people that were on my visit, um, that they were also in my class, but I think it was. I remember the Ruth's Chris experience
Hmm.
for sure. That was
Hmm.
unbelievable to me watching, 20 recruits, 20 players who were their hosts, and a bill that was everybody's getting steak and lobster. I remember that, very well. Couldn't believe it. It's like, who would pay that much for a meal? It's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, Mark Berry, I believe, was my host.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mark Berry.
Yeah. And it might have been Mark Gray, but I think Mark Berry. Do you remember Mark Gray too?
Tom Gray.
Tom Gray. Tom Gray. Oh, it might have been Tom Gray.
Tom was a quarterback punter from Kentucky, a couple years ahead of me.
Yeah.
Good friend. He and Mark were very close and
Yeah,
still,
because I think I hung out with both of them while I was there.
and
So
that would make sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But I
What was
remember
it
it being
about the
cold.
visit?
What's that?
What was it about the visit that kind of stuck with you?
Um, I I don't know. Like that one's a little bit foggy to me. About I remember going to it wasn't even was it McGugan at the time? It might have been a different McGugan because that was before they did all the new
Yeah,
build.
the Magoogan was built in 68. So by the time we
Oh,
came through 20 years later, it was still basically the shell, but they were starting to add on and do some
yeah,
changes
I
around
remember there was a
the same
big
time.
cage in the middle that Bill Kelly had. Like that was his
Hmm.
domain. I remember seeing that, and
Hmm.
I hadn't been to Air Force yet, so I hadn't seen
Hmm.
what a college, what a college facility looked like.
Hmm.
If I would have seen the Vanderbilt that came later, it would have
Hmm.
been an easy decision. But then you go to Air Force Academy, and their facilities were just absolutely top notch.
Hmm.
So I was part of me was comparing those two things when I
Oh,
was
sure.
making my
Sure.
decision. But then a year later, uh, it's way different and beautiful.
Hmm. So
So
clearly there
um,
was enough there for you to make a decision,
yeah,
made a good
yeah,
enough
yeah,
impression
yeah.
on you. And this is, guys, we're so old. It's pre-internet, it's pre-social media, it's pre-cell phone and all that good stuff. When did you learn about the other recruits or signees from your class?
When I
See,
showed up,
oh, well, that's what I was going to say. We received a couple years before you. I got a packet in the mail a couple weeks before I went to reported to school
yeah,
with the little bios that we
yeah,
later saw in the press
yeah.
book. And that's how I
I
learned
probably
others.
got that, Bernard. I
Hmm.
probably got that and looked at it, but I didn't have any
Yeah.
reference point to anybody because they were all from out here. There
Hmm.
was the only other person from California was Chad Bailey,
Hmm.
who that I remember that was coming in that class, and Tim Walker, who was my
Hmm.
roommate. So those two were coming um, from California.
Sure. And frankly, three in a signing class from California, that's a lot
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Vanderbilt back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Um, so you get to campus, and I always like to ask, did you have a welcome to the SEC moment your freshman year? Whether
Oh,
it's on the
yeah.
field, in the locker room, in the weight room, wherever, something that just like, pow, I'm
Oh,
no longer home. I'm in the big time.
I think there are multiple moments, and I've heard it mentioned several times for the guys coming from California to walk into the humidity it really was a big deal.
Yeah.
I was I tend to like just it's a part of my genetics, but I sweat quite a bit
Hmm.
when I'm working out, and I, I could not drink enough water,
Hmm.
and I would still drop 10 pounds almost every practice.
Oh, sure.
It
Sure.
was at least.
Yeah.
Um, so the humidity was a big deal, but obviously Brad Bates, the workout regime was a wake up call of, and I always look back at that too, and I say, man, nobody knows really how hard you can push yourself. You just don't know until you get pushed that hard. And Brad was the best at it, in my opinion. He he made you want to work out really hard. I loved that guy. Like he and Joel Blunt. Um, I know Peterson, actually. Fred ended up working in the weight room, did he not?
He did after his
Yeah,
second
yeah, yeah,
injury.
yeah.
And Fred was my roommate.
And
So
Wolfie, there was another Wolfie was there. That
yeah,
was, yeah,
yeah.
but they just made it fun, man. Like rolling the dice and bringing sand in. I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh yeah,
there was
yeah.
some crazy workout stuff that they did that made it fun. Um, the SMA shirts.
Just
I should have had about 6 of
creative,
those.
creative, innovative.
Yeah,
Just not the usual boring, let's just go
yep,
lift weights.
yeah.
This may have predated you by a year, but the St. Valentine's Day Massacre,
No, we
were,
did that.
were
We
you part of that,
Well,
pushing
I
the
think we did
cars
it
up
for a couple of years where we pushed the cars the
the
parking
parking?
structure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did
yep,
that.
next door to Memorial.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did that.
I didn't know if that was before you or if you had gotten
No, I
into
was
that.
there for that. That
Yeah.
was that was that was wild. Do you remember the belly flop contest in the pool?
No, I don't remember that part.
I won that. I forget how I won that, but I won that. We did off the high dive. We did belly flop contest
You,
in the
when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, I did not see that as a
no,
asset.
no. Well, it's really well known in Nashville. Everybody knows that.
Did you happen to participate in the dunk contest at halftime that ACOS won?
The like dunking at
Yeah,
basketball.
Gerald Collins and ACOS and Dwayne
Dude,
will remember. There were a few
I
other
can't
guys
believe
who,
Akos was in the dunk contest. No, I did not participate in that. I did not I did not have the vertical to do the dunk contest. But Gerald Collins was my roommate for golly, at least 2 years, 2 or 3 years. We were roomies
athlete,
on the road.
athlete,
He was a stud.
athlete.
He
Ooh.
was a stud.
And now he's got a son who's coming up
Is that
as a player
right?
too. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
recruit.
The one
Um,
thing Gerald and I always we were great at sleeping. We we during God, it was why am I blanking on the place? Bell buckle. Did
mhm.
we get back to the room, crash, sleep the entire time? And then when we get to hotel, we were late to multiple meetings by oversleeping in our hotel rooms on the road. We got busted multiple times for that.
I'm sure it was cave-like atmosphere. You turn the air down as low as it would
Old
go.
as we can go, get under the covers and crash.
Yep, yep, yep. Guys, I've got Royce Risser. Royce played in the late 90s, excuse me, the late 80s, early 90s for Watson Brown and Jerry DiNardo, coming out of Southern California. Now Nashville has been home for many, many years. And I want to talk about, we started to touch on the welcome to the SEC moment, that humidity that you first dealt
Yeah.
with. Talk about the speed and the strength and the athleticism that hit you as a freshman.
Um, I was going to talk about that and we got off track, but I'm glad you said it. The, you know, we came in as freshmen and we're working just for a few days as just the
Mhm.
incoming class, and then the upperclassmen come and there's a lot of meetings and you're meeting a bunch of people. And we went out and we put on the pads, and there was at one point our first scrimmage, and
Mhm.
that was the moment. And I'll never forget it. And I know a bunch of guys that I talked to
Mhm.
at the time, we all talked about it, but we were looking at each other on the sidelines, watching people hit
Mhm.
and couldn't. It that's when you realize. I always thought how quickly the freshman class accelerates in intensity
Mhm.
over the course of that year. And everybody knows, like, if I could go back and play one game in high school again,
Mhm.
I always thought that. I was like, if I could go back and play one game in high school again, you would just be unstoppable, because you realize how hard and how fast
Yeah.
you can go. But I remember everybody, I mean, Corey Harris, all of us looking at each other, uh,
Mhm.
looking at on the sideline, like, what? Oh my gosh, look at
Yeah.
that. It was crazy. It's intense.
It is, but I do want to caution you as a 50-something-year-old man, Royce, I don't think you should go back and play high school ball right
I've
now.
got got 1 year of eligibility left in high school. I could go
Yeah,
back.
this is, look, I know we haven't been around each other, but I'm just
That's funny.
speculating.
So Bernard, another. I'm going to keep sidetracking our
Yeah,
conversation.
no, no, go.
About 15 years after I graduated, we put together this video for there's a big event in Nashville called Country Radio Seminar.
Mhm.
And we did a video with a band that we were working with at the time who got voted on a big show at this seminar. They picked like 5 acts. It's called the New Faces Show. And they
Mhm.
were called Hot Apple Pie. The band was former like Brady Seals, who had been in uh, Little Texas prior to that. It was his band. And we put together a video of us like getting them ready for the New Faces show. It's like a preliminary video prior to them going on, an introduction of the band and whatever. You could do whatever, what's funny or not. But I called Luke Wyatt, and part of the video was me taking them through drills to get them ready for their performance. And we took them over to Vanderbilt and put them through like a bunch of training. Part of it was throwing footballs at their helmets and um, making them run the stairs in the stadium. And one of them was uh, me hitting Brady Seals.
Mhm.
And we weren't going to do that to the artist. So one of my coworkers, a guy named Brian Wright, who played at UT, said
Mhm.
he would put on the pads. And so I got to put on the pads again 15 years after graduating and absolutely lay out Brian Wright. And I'm telling you, dude, it was the greatest. I was thinking to myself, no one gets to put the pads on again. I got to
Yeah.
put them on and crush Brian. And he said, dude, that's the hardest I think I've ever been hit. So I felt good 15 years after the fact. Uh,
Oh, that's so
put the
good.
cleats and the pads back on and helmet. It was awesome. Luke
So
Wyatt let us do
good.
that
So
on the
good.
on the practice field. It was fun.
You know, you're right. It's so rare you get an opportunity, but you can't pass that up. You got
No,
to do it.
no, no way.
That's so good. Um, Royce, you go from, like we all do, being big fish in a little pond in high school, but you get to Vanderbilt, D1, SEC, top of the college game. Everybody is the big fish coming into Vanderbilt until you're not. And we all are competitive. That's why we're there. We all have this inner fire in us. We want to compete. We want to win. We want to be first string and start. But the reality is, very few freshmen get to come in and actually play. The talented ones or the ones in the right situation, they do get to play. What was your expectations coming in as a freshman? What were you being told? Where were you working out? What position? Those kind of things.
So I came in, I only played 1 year of linebacker really in high school. I
Hmm.
was on the D line and I was playing tight end. And my freshman and sophomore year, I was a quarterback.
Hmm.
And I did play linebacker my freshman year a little bit. But I begged my coaches to let me play linebacker in high school.
Hmm.
And I said, I just knew. I was like, I'm not going to any college on scholarship as a lineman. I need to
Hmm.
play linebacker. So, um, fortunately, they let me do that and did well and learned it. And I was in the middle. It was a kind of a 4-3 defense, so I was just by myself. Um, and when I got there, that's when Damon Winston was there, and I just realized quickly, Bernard, like it was obviously it was pretty disheartening being um, uh, I say disheartening. It was hard. It was a trial, obviously, to go through that and keep pressing and fighting. And but you also realize pretty quickly, it's like I'm not as fast as these guys. I'm not as big as these guys. I'm going
Hmm.
to work my butt off and try and keep pressing through. But that's stress. I mean, that's hard, you
Yeah.
know. So I didn't come in I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't. but when I got there, when I saw the upperclassmen, and like you said, that shock moment of, it's like, man, I may not play this year. Like I may not get any time. And sure enough, I got redshirted. Um, and you make the best of it, and you keep working. You try to get stronger. You try to lift. And you're trying to get better and faster. Um, and I think everybody has that same. There's a lot of freshmen that get redshirted, and a lot of freshmen that don't play. Um, but it was all for a reason, and it was a good reason, in my opinion. That um, hardened my character. Or it gave me character.
Well, maturity probably was part of that. We all come in as these knuckleheads as 18 or so, most of us 18, and we think we're going to conquer the world, and then we get humbled a little bit,
Yeah.
and then we have to build ourselves back up. That
Yep.
confidence has got to stay there. That sports mentality of winning has to stay there because it's very easy to me. It's very easy when you realize you're being redshirted because the coaches think that you need that extra year. But then you got to make the best of it, like you just said, whether it's academics or social or athletic or all of the above. We need to grow into that.
Yeah.
And you coming from Southern California, it's a whole different um, atmosphere. It's a whole different vibe, if you will. But, and you mentioned this earlier in the show, Royce, that you didn't just stay in that, what I call the Magoogan bubble. Were you able to socialize and get outside of the football world, even your freshman year, to start making new friends and experiences
Yeah,
away?
um, I think when we were talking about that, it might have been off the air, but I
Mhm.
definitely got outside of the Magoogan Bowl. I guess initially like Tim Walker, Jeff Owen, Eric Bentley, David Lawrence, like those are the guys that we hung with, and we were really tight. We were next door neighbors on Branscombe, and we hung out all the time. But at some point, I was involved too. I got involved with FCA pretty quick.
Mhm.
Fred Peterson was in that, and Johnny Clark was in that, and
Mhm.
um, made a lot of friends through that. And also, I guess it was my sophomore year that I really leaned in to the theater stuff. But I really got involved in theater. I had done that in kind of growing up in some form or fashion,
Mhm.
and ended up joining. Well, I got my minor in theater,
Mhm.
and I joined the original cast as a
Mhm.
sophomore, and did their shows in the spring. And I did it every spring. I couldn't do it in the fall, but I did them in the spring every year. And it was kind of cool too because coaches came out and watched the show. Some of the players did too, but that was I became those friendships are absolutely priceless now. I really, really enjoyed that group of people. Um, and so I kind of had several different places outside of the football,
Mhm.
uh, Magoogan, the building there that I leaned into
Mhm.
heavily.
whether they whether they describe you as a Renaissance man or just a plain unicorn, you were not the typical
No,
football
dude.
player
Listen,
in
that
the
doing
SEC.
football and singing is that was us growing up. That was frowned on heavily, right? Like we just didn't do that.
Mhm.
And my brothers also kind of did some of that, not to the extent I did, but they were not afraid of it. And I kind of decided, you know what, I'm not afraid of that either. And if someone wants to get pissed, actually, it's funny. I look back in high school, there was a guy that tried to make fun of me, and it didn't go well for him. But that was I had to lay
Look,
down.
Royce, had you been a kicker or even a quarterback, we might have seen your experience might have been, oh, well, that's cute. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
But dude, you're a freaking middle linebacker and you're singing in college in
yeah,
spring production.
yeah. It was,
Now,
and
it probably
honestly,
didn't hurt your dating life, but I'm sure that it was different experience, wasn't
really
it?
was. It really was. And I'm so happy I made that decision.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, my kids, I have three children. We haven't really gotten into that, but I have three kids who are all pursuing that professionally. They're all in college at Ithaca College in upstate New York. They all got in, which is a really, really, it's one of the top 10 schools in the nation for musical theater, and it's super hard to get into. But all three of them are there pursuing like they want to do musical theater, and they're really, really good at it. They're incredible.
What's their age range? What's the
I
age?
have twin boys that are 22, so they're seniors this year. They're graduating in a few months, and my daughter is a freshman.
How cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you have dual residency in New York and in
Well, they're in
Tennessee at this
upstate New
point?
York, and we're actually talking about that. Like, we might need to get a place in the city for them
Mhm.
to rent from us. We're not going to make it that easy on them, but at least they'll have a place to go and lay
And
their head.
have the boys had their senior production
They
yet?
did. They did their showcase a couple weeks ago. We went up for couldn't go to that because it's all industry people, it's agents and whatnot. But we were
Mhm.
able to go to their performance at 54 Below afterwards, which was fun. Watch them do one song. Yeah,
How cool.
crazy. Yeah.
How cool. And they owe it all to their middle linebacker father.
Well, my wife's musical too, by the way. She's
No, of course I'm teasing. I don't want to leave out Mrs. Risser at
don't take
all.
her out of it. She's
Yeah,
got a lot to
we
do.
know where the real power is.
That's right.
We know that. Royce, I got Clint Biggie Small says to tell you.
Clint, I watched his podcast with you today. I was doing some review stuff. What's up, Clint? Man, he
Uh,
looks good. That guy looks like way smaller than when I knew him. All those guys, man. There's so many guys that were linemen that dropped all their weight, which is awesome. I kind of went the other direction a little bit.
dude's running marathon. Clint's awesome. Yeah, we had a fun conversation recently. Royce, when Watson leaves in the fall of 90, or after the 90 season, you'd already been there a couple of seasons or a couple of school terms. Donardo comes in, and we all know that it is very tough for the remaining players on the roster to mesh with the new coaching staff. You weren't recruited by them necessarily.
Right.
What was that transition like for you?
So it's a funny story. Um, do you remember Kevin Ford was my next door neighbor?
Mhm.
Um, and Kevin and I, when they called that the very first meeting,
Mhm.
team meeting, um, we had sort of been used to, and I don't want to say it in a weird way, but maybe they didn't necessarily care if we were there on time or not. Like it was a little looser for us.
Mhm.
We were in class and we kind of moseyed from over on Peabody campus to that meeting, and we
Mhm.
showed up late. And Donardo made the example of us. There was one more person in there. I don't know if it was Bentley. It might have been Eric Bentley. I can't remember. But
Mhm.
for 2 weeks, we were up at 5 o'clock in the morning, meeting at the track, running to prove a point that you don't show up late to a meeting. And
Mhm.
I mean, I'll still remember that. It was a great lesson for me. I hated it at the time, but I love it now. It's like, absolutely, yeah, I should have expected that. Everybody was there. We weren't there on time, and
Mhm.
we paid for it. So, um, I really loved that discipline. I loved the expectations being really set, especially prior to bell buckle. And I'll say this much: like going from um, that moment of running and knowing that I was like you got to meet those expectations, to the summer prior to bell buckle, going home. I always went back to California,
Mhm.
um, and I came back for bell buckle in the best shape of my life. I was so ready to go,
Mhm.
and um, it was a better experience for me because of that. But I loved the change. It was better for me to get
Mhm.
more. I got more playing time with Jerry than I did in the Watson era. But
Mhm.
And I had a great time.
Your experience, I mean, everybody's experience is somewhat, there's a lot of commonalities. Obviously, you're all there, but it doesn't mean your experiences are the same. Some still have PTSD, won't drive by the web school, don't even want to talk about it. And then others find some humor, like the helicopters blowing off the field when it was soaking wet, or the standing water in the bathrooms, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all of it is supposed to be character building. So we're gonna assume that it added to your character as well.
I loved it. I thought it was awesome. Um, you know, the obviously the facilities were what they were, but it rips through pretty quick and you finish up and you're done. And uh, I loved it. I loved it.
I
Chef
told you
Magic
guys,
out there
this guy
making his
was different.
good
He's
grub.
different. He's built different. He enjoyed bell buckle, and we have it on tape.
I didn't mind it. And I think it was probably because I was prepped for it, honestly, physically. Yeah.
Well, and probably as much mental as it was physical, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Royce, Royce, we come in, like I said earlier, we're 18 years old, we're knuckleheads, we're not, our brains aren't fully formed, and somehow magically you're supposed to, over those 4 or 5 years, get your act together, be mature, and you've got a plan. You know what you're doing after Vanderbilt. You're either going to the pros, or you got a job, or grad school, whatever it is. Where in your journey did it start to form? This is where I'm going to go after I graduate Vanderbilt. When did all of that kind of play itself or come to fruition for you in your mind?
It's wild you say that. I didn't. I literally did not know what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I had not until I did my internship at MCA Records.
Hmm.
And even then, I still didn't know I wanted to do that until I got into promotion and
Hmm.
started working there. And I was going to grad school. I was getting my master's in H&OD, or human resource development.
Hmm.
And they allowed me to do that. So it was like, on Friday evenings or Friday afternoon, and then Saturday kind of all day
Hmm.
scenario. They allowed me to do that, but I didn't know I wanted to work there. And I wasn't getting paid hardly anything compared to the guys that had graduated alongside of me. Um, Matter of fact, when I started there, it was $15,000 a year with no benefits. And all of our buddies were going to work for Arthur Anderson or whatever, and they're making 70 grand. And obviously that was a grind, and they knew that they could get those kids for that. But I was having fun and I loved it. I loved going to work. I loved the people I was around. I loved the artists. I was starting to really love the music. Kevin Ford was the one that got me listening to country music.
Hmm.
Um, and it was Garth Brooks and Randy Travis and guys like that I was like, dude, this is great. So I really started falling in love with the genre. So being there with George Strait and Reba McEntire and Vince Gill at the time, they were all just breaking. They were just starting. I mean, George wasn't just starting. He had just got his 25th number one when I got there. So that was kind of a marker for me. But Reba was blowing up, just starting to blow up, and Vince Gill was just starting to roll too. So it was a good time. Winona was there. Trisha Yearwood was there. Matter of fact, that's how I met my wife. I know I'm going all over the place, Bernard. I'm not answering your questions. I apologize, but
You're 100% answering the
yeah,
questions.
my wife. It was she played fiddle in Trisha with Trisha Yearwood, fiddle and guitar and background vocals, and that's how we met. We met in New York City. Really strange story. I won't go into the whole thing, but um, she was playing with Trisha Yearwood, and that's how we met. So I met my wife. We've been married
Love
25 years as of Tuesday this week, last
Awesome.
week.
Love it.
Yeah,
I love those kind of stories because
yeah,
Royce, as you and I, when we were getting a little deep earlier, it's just you just never know what leads to the next,
yeah, yeah.
chapter in life. No, David Crop, tonight Royce has specifically asked that he not be.
He wants me to do magic tricks.
He wants you to do card tricks, and I told Crop that
Rob,
this was not the time to
that is
play.
I thought about it today when you said that on the post, and I was like, I don't know what card trick I could do on video, and then they go back and watch it over and over again and try to figure it out. That's what happened.
Right, right, right.
I'll do
Oh,
it in
and my,
person all
my
day long.
roommate, we already mentioned Fred Peterson is in the house.
Fred's
Fred,
there.
what's up, Petey? And he
Tell
says
Dina
to
I said hi, Fred.
and he says to tell you happy anniversary.
Thanks, man.
Royce, one of the things that I do want to talk about that we always talk on the show is when it's the end of the road as an athlete. If you can call your own shots, you retire as a 15 years in the pros and you go to the Hall of Fame. That's not going to happen for most. Most of us, we graduate. We're done. Our eligibility is up.
Yep.
Some of us, we get injured and that ends the career. Others try for the pros or some level and they just don't make it. Or they just have this, it's out of my system mentality. I'm ready to move to the next chapter. Where do you fit into this during your
I think,
journey?
I kind of fall into that. Um, I knew while I was there that I did not have I didn't have the speed or the size to move on to any other level. I knew that.
Mhm.
And it's hard. It's a hard realization while you're there because you feel like when you're in high school, you can work past that thing. I always thought that genetics play a larger part the further you go along. And I don't know what that percentage is, but if it was 50-50 in high school, it's 75-25 in college. And then, 100%, you have to be a genetic freak
Yeah.
to play professionally. Like it's how you're built. But I knew that I wasn't going to play pro very quickly.
Mhm.
But I knew I could uh, contribute, play, have fun,
Mhm.
enjoy the experience, try to do everything I can, as hard as that is. But it does become more like a job. Like I think everybody goes to college thinking it's going to be like high school, and it's nothing like that. You're
Yeah.
earning every bit of it. You're earning your scholarship at the time. Now they're earning a bunch of money, but um, at the time, it's like you're paying for it, and um, it's blood, sweat, and tears. And I don't. Again, it was a great experience for me. I look back and think about all the conversations that have happened as a result, all the
Mhm.
people that I've talked to over the years. That it's weird too because when I left from Southern California, hardly any of my classmates even knew there was a Vanderbilt.
Oh, sure.
They didn't
Sure.
know what Vanderbilt was.
Yeah.
Just wild.
You might as well be going to the moon
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
from Southern California.
yeah, yeah.
What was your favorite and what was your least favorite experience or emotion or feelings about playing ball at Vanderbilt?
Mm. Favorite was always game day, like just going on the road and going to the games and being in those stadiums and
Mhm.
whether it was special teams or if you got a couple plays in there every once in a while, that was just it's that's a rush, and every week you would look forward to doing that. Um, I was I really hated film. I
Imagine that, a ball player hating
had a
film stuff.
really hard time staying awake. I had a really hard time staying awake.
Well,
And
particularly if Gerald was anywhere near you, you two
yeah,
seem to
Gerald,
be in sync with the
we would have
Z.
got caught if both of us fell asleep. We always got caught. I remember running through a hotel trying to make it to the meeting. I didn't even know where we were, but boy, we ran. We were sprinting as fast as I've ever ran down a hallway.
Royce, if you remember, I think it may have been your senior year when the conference expanded and they brought in Arkansas and South Carolina, maybe. Do you remember this? We went from 10 teams to 12 teams or schools. And I want to say it was maybe 92. I don't know if that makes an impression because here's my question.
Okay.
Did you have a favorite away stadium or experience?
Mm, that's a great question. I could tell you the worst
Go for it.
was LSU.
Night game at LSU? Oh, yeah.
Never seen more grown men cry in my life. That was the most crushing
Mhm.
thing. And I've told that story many times and just
Mhm.
how did that happen?
Yeah.
Um, we could have walked away from Death Valley with a W, and that would have also been a obviously there's a bunch of ifs there, but that was
Yeah.
that was I've never seen anything like that before. Also, I obviously remember I was there with when the Chucky Mullins thing happened, and
I was going to ask you if you were
yeah,
on with us in Oxford that day.
yeah, I was. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I've told this story too. I dislocated my finger uh before that happened,
Hmm.
and Norwig popped it back in place, and it hurt like all get out. And you're standing up, you're standing over there, and you're kind of nursing your finger, and that happened. And I remember specifically going like immediately saying, he just broke his neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were watching, you saw it, you saw how he hit and how he dropped, and no
Mhm.
movement. You just knew,
Yeah.
and that was life changing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I don't
And
mean to put down on that.
no, it's okay.
Yeah,
Brad has been on the show and shared
yeah,
his
yeah,
experiences. Gromos, John, one of my buddies, he
yeah,
shared his experiences
yeah.
because a lot of us were there that day, and that's the most impactful sporting event that I've either been part of as a player or seen in person by a long
A
shot.
long shot. It
You
was
know,
it was unbelievable.
you know.
Yeah.
Boyce, we got a couple of more minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time, and I sure appreciate some of these stories, but I know you've got a ton of great stories. We didn't even tap the surface of things that are out there. So here's where I want to go with this. Who are some of you've already mentioned a bunch of these buddies, Lawrence and Bentley and all these Southern guys from Lawrence was from Atlanta area, Bentley from Alabama, Jeff from Tennessee, and then you and Walker coming from the West Coast. What was that dynamic like, the two of you guys? And I don't know if y'all hung out a lot together, maybe you did, but you got all these Southern guys, and then we've got these SoCal dudes coming in. What was that like, that dynamics, and how long did it take for them to stop making fun of your Southern California
Our
lifestyle?
gear, the stuff that we were wearing at the time, it was more. I was probably more clothing than anything, but
Yeah.
and Tim grew up right there on the beach, so he was surfing all the time, and he was really the sort of prototypical what you would think a Southern California guy.
Right, right.
But uh, that was not a hard thing at all. That was fine. It was not hard to navigate. It was fun being not the Southern guy. It was totally fine.
Mhm.
I kind of um, Tim. I think Tim, Jeff, they both joined a fraternity, and
Mhm.
and I kind of gravitated towards like Gandolfo and Eric Weir and um,
The
kind of
Texas guys.
yeah. The tech. I ended up being really really close with those guys,
Mhm.
and Andy McCarroll's sister, Ann McCarroll.
Oh, sure. Who
Um,
lives here in Birmingham now? Yeah.
oh, did she live in Birmingham?
Yeah.
When did she move?
Last couple of years, she lives about 5 miles from me.
Well, we talk every once in a while, but I didn't realize she had moved. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
had a really good friend group with those guys in that class, and still in touch with Gandolfo quite a bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't even remember where the question was started.
Just about the Southern California guys
Oh yeah,
meshing
yeah,
with the
yeah.
Southern guys.
And there was other guys on the team too, like Scott Walker and um, why am I blanking? The other California guys on the team. Oh yeah, well, I brought up shoot.
Louis Woolridge,
Oh,
Southern Cal,
Wolves. Oh
a
yeah,
couple of
yeah,
years.
yeah. He was
Yeah.
awesome. Louis was awesome. I love that guy. He was always super
Yeah.
kind and
Mhm.
supportive.
Yeah. Other than being an LA Dodgers fan, I love Louis.
Come on, man.
I'm a Braves guy. What can I
I
say?
get it. I get it. Uh, Funny story. I want to tell you a quick story that
Yeah.
popped up in the music business. I was one of our coordinators in the promotion department got a phone call, and she comes into my office and she's shaking. She's from Texas,
Mhm.
and she's shaking. She goes, "Roy," she goes, "Mac Brown's on the phone." Like, Mac Brown, like Coach Mac Brown? She goes, "Yes." And so, well, I said, "Sit him in." So I didn't realize how big of a Mac Brown fan she was. She was like crazy about Mac Brown and George Strait. Those were her two heroes. Like it was Mac and George.
Oh,
So he was kind of
that's high
working.
company
He
right
was
there.
working at MCA, and George was one of our artists.
Right.
So I get on the phone, and Mac is calling because a radio station guy that I know in San Antonio or Austin, sorry, in Austin,
Hmm.
gave him my phone number, and he was calling because his brother, not Mac, but their other brother, I
Hmm.
don't know what his name was,
Hmm.
they wanted to take him to go see Casey Musgraves, who was one of our artists. And so
Hmm.
I'm talking to him. I was going, of course, coach, we'll take care of you. I'll make sure that you guys can go back and say hi. And we
Hmm.
worked it all out. And I said, I got to tell you something. This is crazy. You're not going to believe this. He goes, what? And I said, I played for your brother Watson at Vanderbilt. And so it turned into this huge, crazy conversation. And I said, also, one of our artists, Sam Hunt, also played for your
For
brother.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah, he played for Watson. So Sam and I had that when we were trying to get Sam to sign with us at the label. We both had the fact that we both played for Watson, which is wild.
So Mac had no idea of who you were
No
history wise.
idea. No idea.
He just knew who you were from the contact guy.
Yes. Yeah. And I actually asked him, the girl, her name was Juliana. She was getting married pretty soon, and he sent a video wishing him the best for their wedding. And then I got George Strait to do the same thing. So they
She
both,
lost her mind.
oh, she
She
lost her
could.
mind. Like she showed it at the rehearsal dinner, at the wedding. They played it. They couldn't get it. They thought it was the greatest thing ever. It was really fun.
It's that right there, Royce, even though we haven't been around each other since school, that right there shows your personality and how much of a giving person you are, and I applaud that. It was a simple act of yours that created a huge ripple effect and gift for this woman. I applaud that. I think that's beautiful. That's
That was
awesome.
cool. It was fun. It was fun to do, and she couldn't. She was obviously excited. I'm sure they'll watch it every year when they have their anniversary.
Right. All right, last topic, and I'm gonna cut you free. Do you follow the current game? Do you follow the Vanderbilt or college football these days? And
I
if you
sure did
do,
this year. I sure did this year. I kind of got out of the cycle of it. On occasion, I'll go in if I hate to say that. I got invited to go have dinner with Coach Lee
Mhm.
um, not too long ago. John Wenzung um,
Mhm.
invited me, and we were going to go to dinner with Coach, and I had something pop up, so I couldn't do it. So we're still trying to set that up, but I would love to be more involved, obviously. But this year was extraordinary. It was really fun,
Mhm.
especially the Alabama game. Like that was, I'll never forget. We were driving home from Asheville, North Carolina. We were there dropping stuff off for that when they had the hurricanes and
Mhm.
or the rains or the floods. We were driving back, and we had to get off the interstate, and there was 9 minutes left in the game. So we got off the interstate and lost signal. And I was losing my mind because we were in the game, and I'm like, you guys, we couldn't get back. And once we pulled back onto the interstate and got reception again, there was like a minute 23 left in the game. So I got to watch the end of it. It was unbelievable. That's really fun, man. That was a great moment.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you get a chance. I know with the kids and graduation and up Ithaca and all that, I hope you get an opportunity to go see them play sometime this year.
Yeah, I need to go back.
The
Yeah.
atmosphere is not our atmosphere from our years.
Yeah.
It's just it's with all the new facilities and what's being going to be done. I don't know if you are aware of this, but Magoogan is about to be torn down,
Is that
and then
right?
a whole new facility being
Wow.
built, and it's going to be attached a breezeway or whatever you call it into the stadium from Magoogan above the
Like across,
ground.
it'll be over the street kind of thing.
Crossbridge. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
crossbridge. Yeah.
Well, Royce, I truly could be here for the next 2 hours, but I'm not going to do that to you.
We'll set
My
up
friend,
volume two, man. Let's just do another one.
don't write checks you can't cash. But thank you, my friend, for
You
being
are
here.
welcome. This is great, Bernard. Thanks for doing this, man. And honestly, it fired. Jeff Owen reached out not too long ago, and he said, "Hey, let's get together for a breakfast or something." And
Mhm.
it really made me want to kind of reconnect with some of my buddies from Vandy, and watching some of these old episodes brought back so many memories. It was crazy. It really was. So thank you for doing this, dude. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
as I tell, it's a labor of love right here, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Right.
If any of you
Guys,
guys are in town, any of you guys want to meet up, let me know. It'd be fun to connect.
very
Oh,
good. Yeah.
also got together with Alan Young a few years ago too. That was awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hang on, Royce. Let me sign off. I got some things to share with you. Another outstanding conversation with a Commodore who's making an impact. It's not always the impact that Vanderbilt has on the athlete, the student athlete, but it's also the impact the other way around, their impact on the university. And that's an understated thing that I think that we ought to keep focusing on. And Royce is just a prime example of that. And I'm so glad we connected and had this conversation. But you guys always anchor down.